Sweet. Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate you coming out on a Saturday morning. Obviously when you're training, it's important that we focus on nutrition as well, right? Because there's no point putting the effort in if the other end of it isn't so great, right? Because you'll be putting all this effort in for no reason. So today we've spoken a little bit on other talks about certain principles to do with dieting, right? We've mentioned preparing, planning, and prioritizing your food intake, regulating eating patterns, removing emotion from food. But today's going to be a little bit more technical. Talk a little bit about macros, micros, how you can have more of a balanced lifestyle, eating the foods that you want to enjoy, right? Because there's nothing worse than going into a diet. I know what it's like. Most people when they think about diet, they think starvation, they think, do you mind shutting the shutter? Is that right? A little bit, is that okay? Just a little bit, because it'll probably be loud. Cheers, man. Thinking about eating rabbit food, has to be purely clean food, nothing dirty kind of stuff. And so I want to kind of rewrite the script a little bit, show you how you can eat, I don't know, peanut butter or go out for a pizza on the evenings, and still kind of like achieve a fat loss, right? Because we have to have a quality life with it. We don't want to be just in this fixed mindset of thinking that we have to just eat the best food in the world, and if we don't, then it's going to be off track. Cheers, man. Who cycled here? Yeah, good man. Love it. It's safe now. Yeah, so it's important, right? Like I think we all have a life, and at the same time, if you got friends, family, social life, you don't want to be in the mindset of thinking when you go out for dinner, like, oh, I can't eat because I'm going out for burgers or I'm going out for like a pizza, and you kind of feel a bit guilty for consuming that kind of food. So put your hand up if you think you've got a pretty good understanding of your diet right now and it's in a pretty good place. No? Just standard. Like, is it in a good place? Is your diet right now like where you want it to be? No? Okay. Yeah. So, and sometimes, right, also, I guess with dieting, what we generally tend to find, right, is an all or nothing approach. Where it has to be all in, and then if we can't maintain a high standard, then it's back off it, and then we consume and we binge for like 3 days in a row. Then we go back onto it, Monday's starting again, let's go crazy on a Monday. So we want to kind of work out that cycle, work into more like a, not all or nothing, but always something approach. So the first thing we're going to talk about, right, is obviously energy balance, calories. Does anyone like at the moment like track their food intake at all? No? Yeah, you do. Oh yeah, cool. On MyFitnessPal? What do you track on? Yeah.
I got the nutritionist.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. And then within those kind of calories, right, we have what they call macros. Does anyone know what a macro is, or macronutrients are? Totally fine if you don't, you can guess. Nothing's a bad guess. No? So we've technically got 3 different macros, okay? We have protein, carbs, fats, and then probably the most consumed for some people is alcohol, which is the 4th macro. It's not really a macronutrient, but we might as well consider it one, right? When we talk about calorie intake, right, we have to eat a certain amount of food in order to lose weight, obviously to gain weight and to maintain our weight, right? So, that's why the board is here. Do people track their weight at the moment at all or not? Or is it kind of ad hoc? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sweet. So does anyone understand what like a calorie deficit is at all or not? I'm obviously more than welcome to. Yeah, so let's say over a week, that's our weight. That's a pretty straight line, isn't it? And that's, I'm so happy. It took me ages. I was doing this for about an hour earlier. Literally, Quiver not doing it, so I couldn't draw 3 circles. Yeah, and that was one attempt. Still better than my 35. So if that's our weight, right, and let's say it's let's say it's just a 75 kilos or something. It's actually my weight. If I consume less calories than it takes, all right, so if I'm, let's put it in simple terms. Let's say I burn 2,000 calories a day, right? Now if I eat 1,800, I'm in that deficit, right? I'm 200 calories below what I'm burning per day. So I'm here. That's if I'm eating, say, 1,800, and my kind of maintenance calories is 2,000. If I'm eating 2,400, all right, I'm then in a calorie surplus, right? So I'm really gaining weight, all right? And obviously, if I'm eating 2,000 calories, I'm going to be maintaining my weight. There's many different factors that this wasn't really part of the talk, but we'll go into it. there's many different factors, right, that go into like what we burn per day. Can anyone name one of the four?
Exercise.
Perfect. So they call that, I should really be left-handed, shouldn't I? Exercise, activity, I don't know why, thermogenesis. Okay, so that's one part.
Sleep.
Well, like, think of the bigger picture. Not just sleep, but what else you... Just lying down, just resting, right? Yeah, exactly. So we have rest, which is just, if you lay on the sofa all day, your body starts to burn calories, right? To maintain homeostasis, maintain like body function. So think organs have to function, you have to see stuff, you have to process stuff in your mind. You have to breathe in oxygen, breathe out. Yeah, so that's called your basal metabolic rate. All right, what else do we have?
Just going about your activity during the day.
Yeah, so, which is called NEAT, right? Non-exercise, activity thermogenesis, which is, I can't bother to write that, but, so that's NEAT. Okay, so that's stuff you drinking a drink. That's you getting up, getting down. That's in between rest and activity. So purposeful activities, you come into work out here, you moving like that, moving your foot across, reading the label, twitching your thumb. I always sit and do this in my foot. Like that's neat. That's the little things that count, right? And then we have one more, which is really hard to think. So we consume food, right? When we consume food, we also burn calories, right? So they call that TEF. They call it a thermic effect of food. So that's just eating food. When you consume it, obviously you salivate, you digest the food, okay, you're chewing it, so you burn calories that way, all right? And we'll go into it in a second. Protein, carbs, fats, alcohol, they burn different amounts of calories in your body, all right? They take different amount of energy to digest. So what we generally tend to find, right, is most people in a diet will kind of neglect BMR. So BMR, if this is 100% of your day, 100% of your energy output, right? So all the calories you burn in a day is this bit here, right? BMR is about 60%, right? So you burn a lot just by chilling, doing nothing, sitting down as you are. The next part, all right, which people don't think about is NEAT, okay? And that could be between 15 to 20%, all right? So this is 60%. Exercise, all right, how much do you think of exercise you burn in a day? How many calories or what's the proportion in terms of percentage per day do you reckon you burn through exercise? Yeah, about 10 to 15 depending on how hard you work. All right, depending on what workout it is. All right, and then at the end, if my maths is great, 8, 20, 90. It's like 5%-ish. Obviously these could be manipulated a little bit. About 5% is through food. All right, that's probably about 110, but like give or take, right? Most of the time, people will focus on that 10% through exercise, right? I need to burn more calories when I'm exercising. It's probably not really the most important thing, right? If you think when you exercise, you burn 300 calories, probably maybe a bit more. But the NEAT, you can probably burn up to like 1,000 calories a day. Like sometimes people doing that. I've done this before, right? And it's roughly, I burn about 3,300 calories a day, just myself. Right, this is a lot. So I consume a lot of food just today to kind of stay around. So if I'm generally eating 2,500, I generally will lose weight. All right, because I don't have a history of dieting either, because that can sometimes play an impact in terms of like weight loss in the future. Right. So if we know this, it's important, right? Like when we think about exercise purely for the purpose of getting fitter, getting stronger, improving your movement patterns, okay, improving your posture, and feeling better, right? When we talk about dieting is purely for weight loss, right? Or weight gain or weight maintenance. Does anyone know, okay, now the macronutrients are protein, carbs, and fats, okay? So we have 3, as I mentioned, okay, maybe 4 if you count alcohol. They all make up the calories we consume in a day, right? So if we have 2,000 calories in a day, that's purely a combination of protein, carbs, and fats. And that's it. Unless you consume alcohol, then that's maybe obviously the 4th macronutrient. All right. Does anyone know how many calories are in 1 gram of protein? It's cool if you don't. Shout out a number. No? So 1 gram of protein. So let's think. I have no protein here, but 1 serving is roughly like 2.7 grams of protein on this. How many calories are in 2.7 grams, do you reckon?
10 calories.
Not far, but
15.
nope.
8.
Nope. Think lower.
5.
Lower.
3.
Higher. 4. Hey, we got there in the end. Great guess. Great guess. First time. Well done. All right. So if we think, where's my pen's gone? So we have 4 calories per 1 gram of protein. Okay. Okay. So we have 4 calories per 1 gram of protein. So if we consume 100 grams of protein a day, that's 400 calories out of that 2,000. Yeah. How about carbs or fats? Here's the clue. It's 4907. So carbohydrates, how many calories in 1 gram of carbohydrate? 4. Wait. How about alcohol? 7. Wait. I tricked you. And then obviously fats is 9. Right? So 1 gram of fat has 9 calories in it. That's generally why people say, obviously fats make you gain weight, right? Or fats are fattening. They're not necessarily. They're just more energy dense than the other macronutrients, right? If you have 2 grams of protein, you're still eating less than 1 gram of fat, pretty much, yeah? So how we make up our day, right, is this going to be divided by this? We'll work out in a sec now as well. So if we consume 100 grams of protein, as I said, right, it's 100 calories, 400 calories. If it's 200 grams of carbs, that's 800 calories, right? And we'll make it really easy. If we're doing 10 grams of, or 20 grams of fats in a day, there's 180 calories. All right, so you can see, right, if there's a big difference in that. In terms of like people's goals, etc., and how much they're consuming, sometimes it's a good idea to understand how many calories you're consuming in a day, and then we can understand thereof, like, how is your weight going? Is it staying the same? Are you losing weight? Are you gaining weight? And then we can adjust from that. Because once you have the data in our hand, it's easier to then interpret it and then make changes thereafter, right? Hence why we've got the tracker, right? And you use that tracker and you start tracking, oh, I see now my weight's going down if I'm reducing my food intake. So a nice, easy way of thinking about it, right, is whatever your goal weight is, times that by 10 in pounds. So whatever your goal weight is in pounds, times that by 10.5, and that's roughly how many calories you should be consuming in a day to get to that goal. Yeah? So if you have, I don't know, a weight of 70 kilos you want to get to, times that by 2.2 to work out the pounds, okay? And then times that by 10.5 to work out how many calories you should be consuming to get to that goal, pretty much, all right? And in terms of protein intake, we roughly want the weight, your weight right now in pounds times 0.8 is a really good place to start for your protein intake, okay? So if you're 180 pounds, times that by 0.8, and that's roughly the amount of protein you should be consuming to I guess, increase size, increase strength, increase muscle, okay, and preserve it as well. When we're dieting, it's really important that we keep our protein nice and high, right? Because the first thing your body will do will try and break down protein, or try and break down your muscle, sorry. Obviously, when we're looking to get stronger in the workout, we want to increase our strength, right? We want to increase our size. So it's really important we elevate our protein levels to at least that kind of level, 0.8 now. If you've got your calculator, work out like what your weight you want it to be, all right? Times that by 10.5, and then that would be the kind of amount of calories you want to be consuming per day. Yeah, so...
So you, not 10 stone, maybe say I want to get 10 stone times 14 times 10.5.
Yeah. Does anyone know how many calories or how much protein they're consuming a day-to-day basis right now? All right, we'll work out in a sec because we've got other little things as well, right? We can use our hands as a reference.
And where does sugar fall in this?
So sugar will be obviously depending on the food that we'll go on this in a second, right? Depending on the food you consume, whole foods, etc. Ideally, again, we'll talk about this 80-20 rule, but ideally, sugar's not the enemy if we consume it in small amounts, right? It depends on the quality of diet and the quantity you're having and the amount that you're consuming it in. So if you, I don't know, do you track how much sugar you have in a day, or do you track the kind of food you consume?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then if we're generally eating, like we'll go into in a second, the 80-20 rule, generally speaking, it'll be okay. Like I'll explain it in a second. Sometimes we have like this really big focus on sugar when the rest of our diet's not great anyway. So by brushing up the other stuff, we kind of remove the sugar anyway and that temptation. Does anyone know, I've just mentioned a few, the function of protein in the body, like what it does for us, and I guess why it's important? You can shout some ideas out, obviously don't be shy.
Is it good for muscles?
Yeah, so in what way?
Yes, build muscles.
Yeah, repairs tissue, builds tissue, okay. So tissue strength, when we work out, obviously we rip and we are like micro tears in our fiber. You know that the DOMS you get, the soreness sometimes? Yeah, not necessarily just because of that. But we rip our muscles, right? Every workout we'll do, if we're doing, obviously the goal when we in the workouts and density is to get stronger in the workout. So lifting heavier weights, maybe, or doing more reps or more sets or a slower tempo, all right, to build strength, right? To build muscle. The more we kind of stimulate that or overstimulate ourselves, so as in week to week, we increase our strength that we do. So maybe we're doing a bent over row, we're going 10 to the first week, maybe 2 weeks time we go for 12 and a halves, right? That's all gonna help improving our strength. And the reason why protein is important, if you consume protein, obviously you'll be getting stronger in that aspect, right? What else is it good for? So we've got tissue quality, tissue strength, repair, what else? Pardon?
Mobility.
A little bit. So it can repair tissue and soft tissue. So if you've got like ligaments and tendons, it can help with that. What else? So bone density, yeah. What else?
Can you increase that as you get older?
What's that?
Bones.
By training and doing strength-based training, yeah. You increase your bone density. I guess it will, the amount you can increase it by would decrease as you get older, if that makes sense. What else?
Does it help break down foods? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So you have so you have enzymes that break down food. All right, so that's kind of fats a little bit, etc. So the breakdown of fatty acids, breakdown of like vitamins into our body would be more fats. It's also good for hormonal function, okay, and cellular structure. All right, really important things people miss, right? So by increasing our protein intake, we generally increase our hormonal function as well. All right, which is really important, right? Sometimes people neglect that. Carbohydrates, what's that good for? What do we do today in that? Yeah.
Energy.
Exactly, yeah. So energy is really important. Energy, muscles, and what about fats?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Does protein help with someone who's on HRT? That's a
Hormonal repair. Yeah. So if you're regularly strength training, for sure. If you're that comes apart, I guess, more so in terms of your activity on a day-to-day basis. It'd help with HRT. I also imagine the quality of food you consume around that as well. Yeah. What about fats?
Heart.
Yeah, cardiovascular health. What else? Anything else? No. So again, it helps with digestion, certain vitamins, as well, and also hair, nails, skin, teeth, hair. It's also really important for, right? People think, as we mentioned before, right, because it's really high calorie intake, talking about grams, people neglect fat straight away, but fats are really important to have, all right? As a rule of thumb, once we've worked out these two, 1, 2, for most people, I just start there and say, work out the weight in pounds that you want to get to, times that by 10.5. That's the goal amount of calories we want to be consuming, okay? Then we'll work on strategies around that. Like I said, preparing, planning, prioritizing our food, which you mentioned before, removing stress from food, regulating eating patterns, okay? You can watch that talk actually in that. There's the on-demand platform. And then we work out weight in pounds, times that 0.8. That's the base minimum we want to be consuming for protein intake, okay? And we want to get to that. These are the first two we think about when we think about dieting, because most people don't need to go beyond that. I think that's like level 1 and level 2. sometimes people think maybe jump to level 7, level 8, level 9 when we start thinking about like stuff we put in tea and other bits and bobs that maybe don't pay much of a difference when we don't have these two in check. Yeah. From that, I would then say number 3, a quarter amount of your kind of calories or a fifth want to be from fats. All right. And that's it. So can we increase that? Sometimes I look at some people's like MyFitnessPal and they're having 15, 20 grams of fats a day is probably not enough. Yeah. So I'd say whatever that amount is, a quarter of your goal, like your calorie intake that you know. So literally just get your goal weight in calories. You know, we mentioned before it could be 2,000 or 2,500. Divide that by 4. That'll give you a total amount of calories you consume from fats. Divide that by 9 and that'll give you the amount of grams. Does that make sense? It's quite hard to understand, but does that make sense? It's cool if it doesn't. Yeah, cool. Sweet. All right. So, let's do a little example. If someone's 85 kilos and they want to get down to 75 kilos, all right, so 75 kilos is the goal. How much protein, how many calories, how many fats they need to be consuming on a day-to-day basis? Can someone grab that calculator out? And I'll let you guys work out the amount of calories they need to consume, amount of protein, and amount of fats they need to consume. All right, so who's got the phone? Sweet. Lorraine, you can be the phone holder. So if someone wants to be 75 kilos, let's help Lorraine work out how many calories they need to be consuming. What's the first thing we need to do? Yep. Yep, so
It's about 1,700 calories.
as if you've done it already. Okay, you can be the person. Yeah. All right. So 75 times 2.2.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Is what, 1,700 roughly?
165, and then into 10.5 gives us 1,700 roughly.
Okay. The 1,700 calories. Does that seem high for some people or not? Does that seem high or does that seem low? No, like it's a good number. Like, yeah. This is important, right? Because I think sometimes when people jump into MyFitnessPal at the very start, it will just give them automatic 1,200 calories. Like, here's your 1,200 calories to consume. It's like, that's really low. Yeah. So 1,700 calories is okay. Cool. How much protein does that person need to be consuming then?
Divide that by 4.
No. So we know that your weight in pounds times 0.8.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Times that by 0.8.
So what does it do?
130.
230. 130. So minimum 130 grams of protein. Yeah? We got it? We on track yet? Yeah? Or I've lost you all. Yeah? So we know that.
So I give you 130 as that's 75. That's the weight in pounds into 0.8, right?
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, perfect. 130 grams. And what about fats? This is a little bit trickier. Is that what it, huh?
425, 17 divided by 4.
Is that it? That's really good maths if it is. Ah, okay. So 425 calories, yeah? And then divide that by 9, because that's the amount of calories you'll consume, and then divide that by 9 is what?
So 47.
47 grams. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, so we got fats, protein. So we know roughly if that person's consuming 1,700 calories, a minimum 130 grams of protein, and a minimum 47 grams of fats, the rest can be obviously carbohydrates. All right. So what we then do to complicate things even further, we know this is 425. How many grams of protein is how many calories in a gram of protein? Hey, good. Don't all shout once. So 130 times 4 is what?
520.
520. 520 calories. So if you're being very technical, we can go 1,700 minus 520 minus 425 equals what?
750.
755. Cool. And then divide that by how many for carbs? 4. gives us
189.
189 or 190. Let's put 190. Yeah. So if we're on, say for instance, MyFitnessPal, or we track it, we can really easily just work out, okay, we're having 700 calories a day. That's taking 2 minutes, right? It's a bit of legwork to start with, but it's not so bad. 130 grams of protein, 190 grams of carbs, 47 grams of fats, and that's generally speaking their day-to-day intake. Obviously that can be manipulated, and we'll go through that in a sec here.
The question I have is, if you're today 85 kilos and your goal is 75,
Yep.
at this amount of calories, how long will that take? Because you still have to lose
Yep.
10 kgs, right?
Yeah.
So
Where have I put it? We'll get there in a second. Okay. So ideally, obviously, that's one thing, right? You can overconsume protein if you wanted to. You can overconsume fats if you wanted to. All right. I'd say 0.4, like so 40% intake of fats is probably a good place. Doesn't need to be any more than that, unless you kind of go keto or low carb. But I generally find it quite hard to eat less carbs on a day-to-day basis, right? Especially if you're working out and you're trying to be in here, right? Carbohydrates good for energy, good for performance. But nothing against it if you prefer going low carb, right? So that's like a pretty good place to be for most people. Obviously, you can consume more, right? Does anyone know? So if we look at protein intake, and that's 130 grams, what is, I guess people are probably thinking like, well, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis in terms of like chicken or other types of protein? So I've just given you one, chicken. What other types of protein are there?
Seven.
So salmon will actually go in here, like protein and fats, there's a little bit of both.
tuna,
Tuna, yeah, tuna will be here. Yeah, because it's, what else?
eggs.
Yeah, eggs in here. So a bit of both. This is what I needed, a Venn diagram, yeah? What else? What other things we got?
Nuts.
Yeah, nuts are like, can be kind of like I guess here, depending on what nuts you have.
Avocado.
Again, avocado right in the middle. This contains a mixture of everything. What else?
Greek yogurt.
Greek yogurt, yeah, Greek yogurt's here. G-yog. What else?
Any type of meat or chicken.
Yeah, any meat.
Turkey.
Yeah, turkey. Obviously, like, so beef would be here, protein and fats. So we think like red meat, or we think dark, like red fish, for instance, like salmon, stuff like that. Haddock, mackerel. That's more like protein fats, right? It's a high amount of fats in that. If you think like sea bass, cod, etc. Yeah, that's tuna, and that's more protein. White fish is more protein. All right. So sometimes, like, it's important to understand this, right? Because actually, let's go to carbohydrates. Good source of carbs.
Bread.
Pasta. Stuff.
Yeah. Everyone knows this one, doesn't it?
Rice.
Yeah. What else?
Potatoes.
Pardon? Fruit. Yeah. So fruit can, yeah.
Potato.
Potato. What else? Milk is kind of like a blend of all three, I guess, but more, yeah. We got donuts, yeah, in the middle. So donuts is kind of like carbohydrates and fats, yeah. The more processed you get, the more kind of blend of carbohydrates and fats they are. That's why they taste so good, yeah. So yeah, donuts. We've got granola, will probably be carbohydrates and fats. I've got peanut butter here. Peanut butter is probably in this, so nut butters, like that stuff. Some sources of fats.
Cheese.
Yeah, depending on cheese, could be, like could be here or could be here, depending on the sauce. It's a bit small, isn't it?
Olive oil.
Oils, exactly, yeah, oils are good ones. Yeah, butter. What else? Generally it, to be fair, like there's not much. There's a few things, but egg, salmon, beef, that kind of stuff, red meat, darker types of fish. You've also got darker meat as well. So if you go from like a chicken breast to a chicken thigh, there'll be more fats. Yeah.
Chicken breast has fat.
Chicken breast is leaner. It's not necessarily butter. It's just leaner. So there's less calories on chicken breast than chicken thighs, right? If you've got chicken thighs, it's a blend of like protein and fats. Whereas obviously you're taking like 9 grams of fats away. That is 81 calories that you're not having. Yeah. Yeah. So we can start to see this, right? Your question was, yeah, sugar. Yeah, and weight loss as well, right? So once we understand this, right, we can start making better choices when it comes to calorie intake we have. Because sometimes we think, oh, nuts are a good source of protein, right? We'll have loads of it, and then before we know it, we've had 520 calories of nuts, right? In 1,700 calories is a big chunk of it, right? You only got 1,200 calories left for like a few meals, 3 or 4 meals. So if we know that you need to consume 130 grams of protein, and if your calories are quite low, we want to be choosing like easier, not all the time, the sources which are mainly from the protein section, right? Because they're going to be containing less calories, right? Does that make sense? That means it affords you more space for, like, I guess, a bigger budget for the other amount of calories you have in a day. Nothing wrong with this stuff in the middle. It just contains a high amount of calories because it's obviously a combination of different macronutrients.
I think that's where I've gone wrong, because I'm constantly in the middle.
Yeah, but so we're going to go through in a second actually. So just like portion sizes of peanut butter and what they really are. Actually, let's do it now. Bum, bum, bum. Who wants to be a guinea pig? A volunteer? I'll become dude. So, I want to put on what you think on this plate is the recommended serving size of that.
Recommended?
Yeah. So just scoop out what you think is in, what you think it's going to break, because I thought there was spoons in there, but someone's taken.
Recommended size 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I was to have this, I would have had it on a sandwich, and I would have put about.
Slice on there. Do you want that? That's it, gone.
I would have put about this much, I think.
You,
Spread it out.
do you want the bowl? Do you want the Okay.
On a sandwich.
All right. You can actually if you want. Yeah. All right. How many grams do you reckon it is?
10 grams.
So how many calories do you reckon is in that?
So it's 4 calories to 1 calorie.
But that's weight. That doesn't make up protein, grams and fats. That's just the weight of it. You reckon 60? Okay, cool. Let's work it out. So, who's got a calculator? So, there's 643 calories in 100 grams. This is 42 grams. So, what's 643 divided by 100 times 42?
643.
270.
270. So, yeah, so there's 270 calories in that.
Wow.
Yeah?
Yeah, no wonder.
Yeah. That's a lot though, right? If you think like 270 calories, you could, and I've had it before, I can have a chicken breast, yeah, with like a whole bowl of salad, like this big, cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, sweet corn, I don't know, gherkins, peppers if you want, I don't know, anything you want in it, even like sauce on top, and that's 190 calories. And that volume of food is much bigger than what's on that plate there, yeah? This goes down in 2 seconds as well. Yeah, it's nice.
Is that meant to be good for you though?
In small quantities. It's only good for you if you're managing your weight right and your calorie intake accordingly, and the quality of food you consume. So obviously this is quite processed, yeah? 270, who wants it by the way? Do you want it? No. Sweet. Okay, let's go on to. Oh, hold on. Who's the next volunteer? A serving size of granola. Huh?
30 grams.
crazy. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't tell them. Go on.
Put what I would put in.
Just what we. I eat way more, by the way. I eat loads. Like,
Just this is what I would put in for porridge. That'd be my porridge. And then
so
that.
that amount. Does anyone have more than that or not?
That's what I would have.
All right, that's fine. Put in what you think you'd have.
That's tiny.
That's fine. You're going. Whoa, you're going it.
I've always
That's fine.
smaller at home.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fine. All right. To be fair, I'd probably have that much, maybe a bit more myself. I eat loads. Yeah.
I put two, that's more than what I'd want.
Yeah.
Because I don't have lunch till later, so that will fill me up for the morning.
All right. So, if we do 421 times 1.8. Don't say it. But that's not. How many calories do you reckon that is?
A lot. Because it's sugar.
I'll probably eat
How many calories?
About 600 if not more.
1,000. How many is it?
760.
760 calories, yeah. So if we're having 1,700 calories a day, yeah, and I've gone from that and that's 1,000 calories already. It's quite a lot, right? Do you think, shit, like I haven't got much left? Yeah, and also, if you think, like we talk about sugar, right, and we talk about simple and kind of complex carbs, obviously that's kind of quickly absorbed and digested fairly quickly, right? Which always leaves us feeling a little bit hungrier later on. Yeah, this kind of stuff gets processed very quickly. Yeah, so that's what we feel full at the time, but 10 minutes later we're back hungry again, thinking, damn, man, I need more of it. So it's important to understand maybe the choices we make. You can see now, right? The choices we make are sometimes a little bit misleading, right? The back of a pack has actually gone up now. It was 30 grams. It's now recommended size 50 grams. 50. So you had 180, huh? Yeah, I think because no one ate 30 grams, probably.
We have, like now we got everything, all the plates are so much bigger than they used to be. So if you feel like I will go to my grandmother's cupboard pizza like this. Now I have it home like this and obviously that's a
Yeah.
I'm having an empty plate.
Hold on. Oh, no! I was gonna show the recommended size. Why have I got square bowls? I'll hoover it. I'll eat it actually now. So, what we got? The recommended size of serving is basically what you put in. Well, now.
That's what I put in the porridge. A rough guess. Because once you have the milk, then you mix it up. It's no.
So that's actually the recommended serving size.
Oh, that's less than what I
That
put
is
in.
tiny.
Small, isn't it?
That's less than what I put in, isn't it?
Huh?
That's less than that.
Seems
Yeah.
almost pointless. Yeah.
It's tiny, right?
Yeah.
To think, 50 grams. It's like what you give your kids, I guess. Sweet. What about?
That stuff never fills you up anyway.
No, it doesn't. We'll talk about sugars, right? So sometimes, obviously, sugars are not the most amazing thing for health, but at the same time, I think it's more the quality food. It's more that we've gone to the processed foods, stuff like this, which is more so like more of like a dopamine hit. So you have dopamine, which is like the hormone that we kind of, we crave certain foods and we want it and it makes us feel good. Yeah. That's dopamine, right? And it kind of sits at the end of your tongue, and that's why it's like the first tastes so good. So I think with sugar, it's more the issue that we've gone to to more processed foods that we have, stuff like this. But it means that we want to consume more of it, right? Because it tastes nice. If we can flip the switch a little bit and eat a bit more of a whole processed foods, take the stuff out, have more volume on our foods, we'll consume less sugar as a result, right? And it generally won't be an issue then.
It's better to eat at breakfast then.
So ideally, if we go back to this, as I mentioned, right, we've got the calories and the protein, the two kind of goals that we have. Protein is probably, for me, for most of people in here is going to be the most important thing you want to be consuming on a day-to-day basis, right? So to get 130 grams in per day, if we think what a recommended serving size of this, it has got 5 grams of protein in. So we have this amount, that's 5 grams of protein. We've still got 125 grams to fit in the rest of the day, which isn't much. Maybe with milk, we've probably got another 4 grams in there. So it's probably 9 grams of protein per day in the morning. Isn't that much? We've got 120 to fit in, and you've got 2 meals. You're not going to do 60 grams, right? So good examples could be Greek yogurt in the morning with some berries in it, some fruit, yeah, some fresh stuff, really good macronutrients, okay, certain vitamins and minerals, good for organ function, eyesight, hair, skin, nails.
Those flax seeds are good.
Yeah, flax seeds. So in the morning, yeah, milled flax seeds are really good. Yeah, mix them in. So there's always like almost like a 3-2-1 way of thinking about it. So for breakfast, I would generally have like 3 options on the go. One where my day is just generally the same. I'll eat the same amount of food. I know, like if I wake up at 6, my first session is at 7, for instance, and I've got an hour, I'll always have the same meal on those days where it's like pretty standard. So that's option 1, yeah? That would be like regular day. Days where I wake up and I'm like, I missed the alarm, like last minute, what am I gonna do? Like when I'm late, that's the second option. And then weekend, I've got a bit more time, I have a bit more freedom, I can make something else. Yeah? Option number 3. So maybe the weekend. Or if you're off, if you do shifts, you're off that day, right? So with that, I would then try and think, first off, protein with each meal. What's the best way to achieve that? Yeah? So if it's my regular day, it could be Greek yogurt, whey protein with some berries in it, and I have like a small, I probably have that amount, to be fair, of granola in it, I'd say, if it's just with that. Yeah? But I generally will consume about 3,200 calories a day without looking at it, right? So for me, if I'm that choice, I have way more calories, like, if I'm, where is it? Where's the white rubber? Have we got anything on the other side? Oh, I'll flip around. Like, if someone's having 1,700 a day, and I've got 3,400, yeah, I've got a lot more room to play with, right? So I can generally consume foods, stuff like this, which is higher in calories and less in volume, to make up that bulk. So I can afford that. When you're 1,700 calories or going lower, it's a lot harder to add stuff like this in, because it's harder then to budget the rest of the food intake. Yeah? So yeah, I'd have that. So that'd be like option 1, Greek yogurt, stuff like that. Option number 2 would just be maybe a protein shake, grab a banana, off I go. Something really quickly. Right? It doesn't have to be a protein shake in the morning with my Greek yogurt, sometimes I don't. They don't have like the Sky yogurt, you know, like or Skier yogurt they call it. So that's 500 grams. I'd probably have like 2 of them a week. I'd have like 250 grams on one day, 250 grams next day. So I'd be like, a pot would take 2 days, kind of stuff. Yeah, so late would then be a protein shake, something similar with banana. Then I've got a bit more time on the weekend. It may be eggs on some like sourdough, I love sourdough bread. Could be some avocado, could be bacon. Yeah, a bit more freedom, a bit more time. All right, still hitting protein, still kind of good quality. Maybe types of bacon you consume, like the medallion without the fat, that's fine. Would be a little bit less, right? Yeah, your daughter's in car, isn't she? Yeah. So you can see how that plans out, right? I've made options in my mind. I know ahead of time what I'm doing. Therefore, A, B, and C, I can just choose, pick and when, as and when, right? 2 would be lunchtime. So again, lunch I might have 2 options, and if dinner I'll have 1. Dinner's pretty easy. If people go back, they understand what they can eat, right? It's an easier meal. People have more time, so I put less thought into that because there's more stuff at home to make yourself available. Yeah. Where am I going next? If you don't want to track your calorie intake, right, and you not want to use MyFitnessPal, totally fine. What we can do is use our hands as like a way of, as an idea to check it, right? So roughly, with protein, like a fist size of protein, for women is pretty good per meal, and for men, like 2 fist size of protein. Yeah. So if I'm looking at my plate, roughly I want like 2 chicken breasts for guys, 1 chicken breast for a woman. Yeah, fairly standard. Yeah, it's easier to see it that way. With carbohydrates, maybe it's a palm for women, maybe it's 2 palms for guys. Yeah, and that amount. Yeah, does it seem small? Is it, like how much is that? how much has I got now? Let's load it up. Yeah. That's a massive.
It's in the middle. How do you sort of check it?
Yeah. I'll explain that in a second. And then the fats are thumb width, right? Thumb. For maybe 2 for guys, 1 for women. Thumb. So if I'm having dark chocolate, lady the other day, she got like small packs of dark chocolate, right? It's like 5 in a pack, and she thought 1 serving was 1 the chocolate bars. No, it wasn't. It was far from it. So this is like one standard one, right? If we think, actually, let's break it up. Pardon?
One square of that way. Dark chocolate.
They're quite big and mint.
Yeah, bigger squares. So yeah, 10 grams. So that's 60 calories in that. Yeah, so you need to consume 4 or 5. You're having quite a few amount of calories, right? You can see where it's going wrong. So the lady, when she had that chocolate bar, the chocolate bar actually contained 520 calories. Yeah, hell of a lot. But when you go from 5, you take 1 out, you think, oh, that's not bad, right? So it's really important to check the back of the label and be like, what is a recommended serving size? When she took a picture, she's like, oh, it's 1/5 of this chocolate bar, not 1/5 of the pack, right? Yeah, but it's a big difference, right? Yeah, I was like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so a thumb width, right? Is ideally. And that's kind of like when you look on a plate, you probably think, oh, how many nuts am I having? Like, I remember another lady, I said to her, like, she's not going to consume nuts, aim for like a thumb size. Literally, she pulled it out and it was like a whole handful. She's like, is that a thumb size? I was like, how big's your thumb? Like, it's massive. Like, yeah, it wasn't. It was literally like, it's about like that, probably twice. And she put a thumb next to it. And I was like, oh, what are you comparing it to? Yeah, so just be careful of that, right? Obviously, I say that I'm joking, but just be careful of that. And then alcohol is what we roughly say 7 calories per gram of alcohol, right? Well, it's a little bit harder to understand. Sometimes with that, what I'd say is alcohol, forget it being the 4th, and what I would say to people is either take away fats or take away carbohydrates in their day to equate for the alcohol coming in. So you're not adding the alcohol on top of the food, you're just taking, let's say you have 250 calories of alcohol, so like, let's think, I'd say a bottle of beer is like 200 calories, yeah? So what I would generally do, for those that track it, again, they don't have to, I would take 200 calories from carbohydrates or fats in a day to kind of balance it out. Make sense? So 200 divided by 4 is, what, 50 grams? Yeah? So I'd say, cool, either 50 grams or less carbs, or 200 divided by 9 is, I don't know what that is, but what's that, almost 11, 12 grams of fats in a day I would take away. Does that make sense? That's being really technical, but I would just replace the carbohydrates and fats for the alcohol that you consume. Yeah? In terms of, you mentioned this stuff right in the middle, depends on what one it is. If it's nuts, avocados, milk cheese, I would just always recommend like a thumb width. Just stuff bang in the middle.
Yeah, but generally, if I'm having some salmon, I'll throw in an avocado, and then I'll put a bit of salad with it.
Yeah, it's not the end of how much avocado do you have?
The whole bit.
Yeah, so do you know how many calories in avocado? 500. Yeah, so it's a lot, right? Depending on what's 380 plus.
But then that would be lunch with and what about a piece of salmon? That's going to be.
Yeah, so like I would just say to you, there's probably no need for both. So if I'm thinking now, okay, I've got salmon, which is protein and fats, and then probably don't need the avocado with that because that's also giving me protein and fats as well as like a little bit of carbs. I just choose one or the other. If you reduce that, I've just lost 500 calories, technically speaking. Yeah. Or I would cut down to a thumb width.
They're nice to get up. Well, I just
Yeah, they are.
The protein and kind of.
Yeah, but I'm just again, nothing wrong with it, but if we want to be more aware and reduce our intake, right, we have to understand that we have a budget to play with, 700 calories. That could quite easily make 800 calories just between them two things, right? Salmon's probably 320 calories, I think it is, roughly, because there's about 20 grams of fats in there and other bits. Yeah, it overconsumes quite quickly, right? For a smaller amount of volume. Yeah. So yeah, I would say to you, like, have one or the other. If you're having any meal, try not to combine 2 or 3 things together, which just overshoot the calorie intake. not the end of the world, but just be a little bit smarter to it, right? If you're looking for health, maybe it's not the end of the world. If you're looking for weight maintenance, but if you're looking to lose weight, maintain weight, or lose weight or gain weight, then we need to adjust it accordingly. Yeah. Likewise, how much oil you probably cooking that salmon in as well. Yeah.
Oh no,
It's
just the ones from Tesco that you just around for lunch.
Oh, already made.
Already done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. But sometimes we go through like oiling the salmon first, and then we put salmon on, then we have avocado with it, and then sometimes people put butter on top of it. Then it's like adds up. Yeah. All right. But anything in the middle, I'd just say like aim for a thumb. All right, because it generally can be quite high calorie intake. Yeah, so portion size may not be big. You think my portions are really small, but it's the amount of calories in those portions which is the bigger part, like the bigger picture, yeah? I see all the stuff on the floor. No. Yeah, cool. Does that make sense so far? Yeah, any questions at all? Is it still going? Yes, really. So no questions so far? No?
So one question I have is, let's assume someone's 85 kilos.
Yep.
Their aim is 175.
Oh yeah.
The time.
Okay. So you got 10 calories. You got 10 calories to lose. I would say, okay, we'll go on to this now. So, ideally, a really good goal is to lose between 0.5% and 1% of weight on a week-to-week basis. 1% being the absolute best. Like that's the best thing you can do. 0.5% being like a pretty good standard to hit. So I would work out your weight and work out what 0.5% is, and try and aim to lose that per week. All right, so 10 calories, if you're 85 to 75, I don't know how long that would take. You can probably work that out, to be fair. But I would say to do that, right? We don't want to get into dieting for too long though, right? And for a sustained period of time, because what happens, we generally fidget less. So that neat that I went, where did I put it? Did I put it here? It's over here. So this neat, the 20% of a day, sometimes goes down, right? If we're like under consuming calories for a long period of time, so we're dieting, right? It's a stress on our body. Like it raises cortisol levels. Our body doesn't like it. It wants to be in homeostasis, which is just a general like equilibrium. Our body wants to maintain that same function as much as we can. So if we're dieting for a long period of time, sustained period of time, we'll generally tend to find that we fidget less, we move less, so we talk slower, we eat slower, all right? And we just, our temperature maybe doesn't regulate so much. Maybe we put less energy into our workouts. Little things. We don't slow our metabolism. Our body just makes perhaps smarter choices to conserve the energy that we have. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? So little things. If I'm really under consuming, like I'll stop doing this. If I like on a diet, I'll stop doing that. Because my body's thinking, I don't need to do that. Like that's wasting 20, 30, 40 calories on an hourly basis. Make sense? Yeah? I'll be walking slower. It's really weird. I'll talk slower. I'll slur my words anyway, but I'll slur my words more. Yeah? So little things like that. Our body will just be quite smart in that and trying to consume amount of calories. Question was, yeah. So we don't want to be doing it for a long period of time. So I'd say to you, the goal of once you lose 10% of your weight, work out however long that took, okay? And then a quarter of that time, maintain your weight. Allow your body to like go back to homeostasis, allow things to function, allow yourself to feel a bit better. Because when you're dieting, it's quite hard to like do it forever, right? If you're doing it for 3 or 4, 5, 7 months in a row, it's just like a constant slog. You're thinking, geez, man, this is a long time. So if it took you 10 weeks to lose 10% of your body weight, roughly 2.5 weeks spend just maintaining your weight. So that's increasing the calories back up so your body doesn't change its weight at all. Maybe increase it by 30% or so, yeah. Maybe that's a few more carbohydrates. Maybe you keep your protein and fats generally the same, but you intake a little bit more carbs around that. Yeah, make yourself feel a bit better. So your body, your metabolism doesn't slow down, but it just rises up a little bit. You start to like twitch a bit more. You start to be a bit more energized. You feel a bit better. Maybe you sleep better. Generally your mood's a bit better. All right. Once you've done that for a quarter time, then you can go again and attack that again. Another 10%. All right. So those kind of concerted efforts are a lot easier to maintain. If I say to someone, we're going to diet for 6 weeks rather than 9 months, it's a lot harder to do 9 months, right? You think, fuck, that's a long time. But I'll say 6 weeks, I think people can put effort in and applied effort and concentration for 6 weeks. That short snap. Yeah? It's easier to say, right? And I just repeat that until your goal's achieved, I would say. So, work out what your weight is. Yeah? Aim to lose 0.5% a week. Keep going until you lose 10% of your weight. Break for a quarter that time, and then repeat the process again. All right. When I say break, again, increase your calorie intake so your weight doesn't drop. Does that answer the question? Cool. So, and then I guess lastly on a day-to-day basis as well, sometimes like our calorie intake doesn't have to be the same. Most of the time, Saturday, Sunday comes, like maybe Friday night comes, Friday night takeaways. Yeah, maybe we can increase the calories a little bit. So if our goal is 1700 calories and this is your maintenance line, that's eating 1700 a day all the time. We don't have to necessarily consume that, right? It could be 1500 one day, it could be 2000 the next day, all right? As long as we roughly consume 1700 throughout the week. So let's say we have an event on the weekend. On Sunday we're going out, we know we're going to consume like 2000 calories, or say that's 2500. So maybe that's what, 800 calories more than what we're meant to be. We can just go on a day-to-day basis. Well, let's take 100 calories off, or 120 calories off each day, right? So instead of consuming 1700 Monday to Friday, we can maybe consume like 1580 or 1550 to make up for that weekend that you know you're going to consume more, all right? So that's generally where the day-to-day 1700 doesn't matter so much. Maybe the weekly trend does, the amount you consume. Does that make sense? So 1700 divided times by 7 gives you the amount of calories you'll be consuming on a day-to-day basis over the week. All right, and then as long as you kind of roughly hit that on a week-to-week basis, you're in a pretty good place. All right, question? Or no?
Just one. What about when you find yourself struggling to get through the class? Like you feel weak. If you feel weak, is that a carb issue or is it just a general not eating enough?
It sounds like from now, not nearly enough, just maybe the quality of food you're consuming for the amount of portion size probably isn't sufficient. So if you flipped it a little bit and reduced your intake of this kind of stuff you mentioned before, and filled yourself up with like the stuff that contains more volume with less calories, so more more natural foods. Generally speaking, I'd say you'll probably be a bit fuller. And I would then say, depending on how you feel before workout, maybe have a carb heavyish meal, maybe like an hour before, hour and a half before, to give you a bit of sustained energy throughout that. Okay. Yeah, but it seems like just portion size is a little bit, and the type of food you're consuming is a little bit. Yeah, so just flipping that a little bit, having more volume, less calories in each meal would be better.
That's why it's just sort of sat flat.
Yeah. Yeah, because well, you can see, right, like when you mentioned about the peanut butter, the avocado, stuff like that, and the nuts you consume. Yeah. There was one thing, yeah. So when we talk about, and then lastly, right, we don't have to be 100% spot on all the time. There's 1700 calories we consume when we talk about sugar and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be 1700 calories of real good quality. Like, as much as we want it to be, like we have a life, right? So it doesn't have to be that way. So what I like is the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your calories of the food you consume, right, needs to be like whole, single ingredient, like less processed, unprocessed foods, right? Stuff like fruit, fish, veg, meats, yeah, oils, etc. Good quality stuff. The other 1600 calories, the other 400 can generally be a little bit mishap, right? Give yourself a bit of a break. Chocolate bars, 220 calories. Yeah, as long as I'm eating within my range, I can give myself afford that 220 calories because I know I've covered it, if that makes sense, right? So that's like a nice way of thinking about it, right? Every day on a day-to-day basis, you know, like, okay, I can have one square, it's 55 calories. I can probably have 4 squares, and that's probably it's 250 calories roughly, isn't it? Yeah, 4 squares of that, it's a pretty good thing. So it gives you a little bit of mental break, right? It doesn't think you have to be dieting the whole time. You can still enjoy the foods you want to enjoy. If you think about it on a week-to-week basis, if you have 35 meals in a week, is that 4 or 5 meals a day? Like, depending on what we have, snacks included, 28 roughly of them? Can be pretty good. Yeah, the other 7 or 8 can be pretty crap, right? Still, I'm following the 80-20 principle. I'm still following that guideline of 80% of my meals are pretty good. Yeah, 20% of them maybe not so good, right? I'm not saying they have to be like complete disaster, but they don't have to be so bad. If you think about it over a yearly total, if you think 365 days, well, we've got 93 days we can have which are off, technically, right? So I can have 292 good days. Sorry, 73 days. 292 good days, the other 73 can be, so what? Doesn't matter, right? So when we think about a bigger picture, if we binge for 2 days, well, don't worry about it. We've still got 71 days you can binge in a year, if you think about it in that aspect. Not the greatest, I guess, way of going about it, but it just shows you the bigger picture matters, yeah? I think what people do is they think, oh, I've binged for 2 days in a row, whereas like the last 2 weeks have been pretty much spot on, Yeah, the 14 days have just been neglected for the last 2 days. Well, you've done 14 out of 16. You're still above the 80-20 rule. Yeah, you're still in a pretty good shape, right? So just like consider this a little bit when we're going through like our daily intake, right? And what that kind of means on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, month-to-month, year-to-year. All right? Any questions from that? No? At all? None? Cool. You can say stuff if you want to. Does it kind of make sense or not? Yeah? Yeah?
In that same logic, does it make sense, for example, you know, if you exercise, you burn about 300 calories. So if I tell myself I'm going to eat a chocolate bar, but I'm going to go for a longer run, does that work with the same logic?
There's a few things to consider. So, Kashab, Shazad mentioned like, if you are burning calories for exercise, 300, 400 calories, can I then have a chocolate bar? Yeah, or maybe go for a run to equate that. What we don't want to get into is a negative connotation with exercise and food intake, right? I don't think it's beneficial down the long run that every time you eat badly, say, you then think I have to do exercise to burn those calories off, because it doesn't really kind of sit well in that kind of headspace, right? Because then it will lead to other areas. So I would say to you, regardless of exercise that you do, don't worry about that too much. Just focus on that. That's it. Roughly, how many calories am I consuming on a day-to-day basis? Let's eat within that. I won't need to then burn off the extra calories if I'm staying within my target. Yeah. If my target is 1800, I've had 1400 today. Oh, I've got 400 calories left to play with. I can have a chocolate bar and I can be at 1650. I've still got 150 left, roughly. Yeah. Don't worry about then over-consuming. If you follow the 80-20 principle, you shouldn't be needing to do that exercise. Yeah. That exercise. Is that it? Cool. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Whoop, whoop. Appreciate it, as always. I hope I didn't mumble too much on this.